quick thank you to Grammarly for sponsoring today's video. Hey guys, today I wanted to share 7 tips that helped me the most in this past year with online school and online college. A couple of disclaimers before we begin. Some of these tips might not work for everybody, but they're just the ones that worked the best for me and the circumstances that I was put in. So feel free to take these as a chance to experiment with your own study methods and find out what works best for you. The number one thing that changed my study methods the most was focusing more on self-testing over reviewing and rereading material. In high school, I feel like just reviewing and doing study guides kind of just got me through, but I feel like it would have been a lot easier in high school if I would have focused more on doing practice tests and other types of active recall, because even though those study methods are more effortful and comparatively harder than just doing things like annotating notes and looking over and doing study guides, but on the flip side, after having done them, I feel like I was able to retain the information a lot faster and understand the material a lot better. And also there are a lot of other ways of self-testing and doing active recall without just doing practice tests over and over again, because I know this can be draining. So you could also do something like taking out a blank doc and just brain dumping everything you know about the subject and then checking it over with your notes and seeing where like your gaps of knowledge are. In general, I recommend to spend about 20% of your time reviewing and annotating your notes, and then the 80% just doing practice tests and brain dumping and the other forms of active recall. Another way of studying that really helped me this year was talking to myself. So since I didn't have any classmates to explain concepts to, I kind of studied a lot by just explaining larger concepts to myself. And I feel like hearing it out loud and trying to explain and make connections in your course material is a great way of actively thinking about the material rather than just shallowly memorizing it in my head and just silently reading it to myself. And personally, for me, it's a more fun way of studying content than doing practice tests, so I ended up doing that a lot. It was also helpful for pronunciation for my language classes, specifically the Japanese classes that I took last year. Outside of reviewing for tests, it also worked for learning new material as I was reading textbooks or nonfiction books, because I feel like the material would just stick better in my head when I was reading it out loud. The third tip I have is to take advantage of online resources. Online resources honestly saved my butt so hard this year, from study productivity apps like Forest and Tide to YouTube channels like Crash Course and Organic Chemistry Tutor, which really saved me for my STEM classes when there was like a concept that I didn't understand. Just watching like a video on it would help me so much. Writing assistants like Grammarly really helped me when I was writing my resumes, email proposals, as well as essays and research papers for my classes. A quick thank you to Grammarly for sponsoring this portion of the video. Grammarly is a free to download digital writing assistant that is essential for anyone going back to school, but especially college students. It is easily integrated into your daily life as a browser extension through Google Chrome, and it works with you to save time and work more efficiently for all your writing assignments. The free version of Grammarly is really great for double checking your work for spelling and grammar mistakes, but the premium version also offers clarity and concisiveness suggestions to further elevate your writing. I also like using the setting goals tool to make sure that I'm writing to the right audience. The built-in word count feature is also pretty convenient to just check and see if you're reaching the word count if your essay has one. Also, if you double click on any word in your essay while using Grammarly, it'll pop up synonyms. So if you're like me and uses like the same 10 adjectives in rotation, it's a great way to diversify and make your writing sound more interesting. I also use Grammarly a lot in my YouTube, business emails, as well as emails to professors, and it saves me a lot of time in just making sure that I don't have any spelling errors or grammar mistakes, and also just that I sound more concise and professional in my emails. Most recently, I've also been using it to make sure that my resume is nice and professional as well as concise. To prepare for the upcoming back to school season, you can go to grammarly.com/cafe.studyy to sign up for a free account. And if you like those extra features, you can also upgrade to Grammarly Premium for 20% off to help you save time and work more effectively. The next tip is to don't be afraid to reach out for help. For some reason, I've always struggled with asking for help or any kind of assistance on any work I do. because I've always associated that with like me not understanding the material, or me just being like an idiot and like mooching up other people's works. But like, it's perfectly fine to ask your classmates and your professors for help, because they're like literally right there. And that's kind of the whole point of a classroom setting, is to collaborate and work with others, as long as it isn't on like tests or things that you're supposed to work alone on. And asking a dumb question is way better than having that dumb question on the test. And some people probably have the same question. You're probably just overthinking it. So in conclusion, yeah, don't be afraid to reach out. You're no less of a person, no less of a good student for doing so, and the resources are really just there to help you out. Tip number 5 is also a tip that I recently had to learn the hard way this year, which was to limit the amount of music that I play, and sometimes just not even play music at all when I study. Whether or not music actually helps you study or is a distraction has always been a debate for literally as long as I've been in the study community, probably way earlier too. But just personally for me, I found that it's usually more of a distraction when I'm really trying to focus on studying for an exam or something that I really have to deeply focus on. It's just really hard for me to get into the flow state. So for things like studying for exams, I've kind of petered out to not listening to music at all and just sitting in silence, or having my music like really low volume, like at the 1 bar. If it's homework that I really have to have music on, like for something like physics that I really just can't be sitting in silence on, or else I'm gonna die, then I'll probably have like lo-fi going on or some other kind of uplifting music, so I'm not like completely suffering. As enjoyable as music is to jam out to though, when I really want to focus, I just usually have sit in silence. Or if you really can't sit in silence, I highly recommend you just put on some rain sounds or other kind of white noise, just so it's like not completely silent when you're studying. So hopefully that helps too. The next tip I have is called task blocking, which is something that I've started doing over time blocking methods like Pomodoro and variations on the Pomodoro. So rather than like studying for a specific amount of time and then taking a break for another specific amount of time, what I'll do is I'll just do it by tasks. So I'll complete 1 or 2 tasks and then take a short break and then go on to the next task and then repeat like that. I feel like whether you do task blocking or time blocking is really just a personal preference thing. For me, I just can't time block, because no matter if I set it on forest or on like an actual kitchen timer, I either forget about the timer or I'll just like feel like I still want to work after the timer goes off, and it'll just like really pull me out of my focus zone, which is really annoying. And then I'll have to start the timer and then stop it again, and then it's like a big hassle for me. So currently what system works for me is that for tasks that take 1 to 2 hours, I'll just not use any kind of time block and just do the task and then take a break and then do another task. But for longer tasks, such as like studying for exams, which will take like upwards of 3 hours, then that's when I'll use time blocking and like study for an hour and then take a break and then study for another hour, etc. In general, I think it's just a good idea to experiment with both types of methods and just seeing what works for you, and it could be different based on whatever task you're doing as well, as it is for me. So yeah, just experiment and find out what works. The last tip I wanted to share today is just having everything all in one place. So what I mean by this is whatever productivity or planning system you use, just have everything important written down in a single, easy to access place. I feel like having multiple digital and physical planners is honestly really hard to keep track of stuff, and you could have written down one due date in a physical planner, but then not having it on your digital one and then just completely forgetting about it is something that's happened to me quite often. So just consolidating everything into a few, ideally 1 but maybe 2 different easily accessible planning systems is just like a really good idea, especially if you're someone who is very busy and has a lot of stuff going on. It's just a very convenient way to make sure everything in your life is in order. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this first installment of my back to school series, and I hope that these tips gave you inspiration, entertained you, or helped you at some kind of way. And if they did help, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.